Welcome to the newest episode of Inside the Designer Studio. Our aim is to present to you personalities from the audio world, either designers, people really involved in the brands that you love, reviewers, and personalities that are important for the audio industry. My name is Veronica Diaz with Matterhornaudio, and my dear co-host and friend is Elliot Goldman from Bendingwave. So Elliot, why don't you introduce our special guest?
Okay, first of all, I want to thank everybody for joining us today, and please like and subscribe this video. We're trying to make the channel grow, and if you like it, please share it with your friends, share it on your social media. We want to share it everywhere. I think that, you know, our goal is basically to promote the audio business and the business and hobby that many people love. And in order to do that, I think the purpose of Inside the Designer Studio is just to get to know the people as people rather than numbers on a spec sheet or pictures of a piece of metal. Anyway, our guest today is someone that I've known about, I guess about a year now. He is a longtime veteran of the audio business, has played many different roles, but he is now the international sales director of chprecision, which is a product that I do sell and I have a very high opinion of. That's made in Switzerland, and I am very happy that he is willing to join us today. So let me introduce to you Kevin Wolff. And Kevin, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your involvement with CH?
Sure. Again, thanks, Elliot and Veronica, for inviting me to join in. I've watched several of these videos and have found them all to be quite fun. So hopefully I don't let you down today. I've been bouncing around the industry for a few decades now. That's where much of the gray hair comes from. I've done everything from being a regional sales rep for one of the big analog distributors, Sumiko, in the early day, or what's considered today the early days, to working for manufacturers running Bowers & Wilkins North America, and done things like design phono cartridges. I've written reviews for a couple of publications. So I've done a number of things. I got to know Florian Cozy, the C and CH, a number of years when CH Precision had three products. Our first product, the D1 transport, C1 digital controller, and our first amplifier, the A1. And we've maintained just loved the brand from then, and come fast forward to the end of 2021, and there was an opportunity to join the company and take over international sales, which, having lived in Europe for a number of years doing just the same role, but for another small boutique manufacturer, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. Took over 30 years to get here.
And can you tell us what is that you love the most about the brand that you are representing now?
Well, I think, and it's part of the DNA of CH Precision. They're not the conventional plug and play components that you see, whether that be super high end or the more modest mid products that are executed at the higher level. There's another layer to CH that offers, interestingly, at the very high end, a sense of value. That's the modular design of all products that allow for expandability. It allows for upgradability. It's part of the company's DNA that if somebody purchases a digital controller and they have a different source, or technology changes and sources or inputs change, with a modular design, we can facilitate that. Or as we just announced now, our first digital controller was called a C1. While it's gone through a number of updates in the 10 years that it was in production, we just introduced the C1.2, and you can upgrade that C1 and turn it into a C1.2, and the price differential is, or the price of that is the differential from the current C1 to the new C1.2. So there's no loss. There's this long-term partnership almost with a client, ensuring that their products can continue to grow.
That's one of the things that I really like about it, is that as for a customer, or even for a dealer, there's no penalty involved when something changes. I mean, since it's all modular, you order the new gizmo, whatever it is, and if there's a software update and you plug it in, and for the most part, it's something that's, at least the ones that I've done before, are kind of minor surgery. And our clients have been, even when it's slightly more than minor surgery, have been really quite happy with it. I think one of the things that happens in audio with brands is that when something new comes out and then a customer is left with something and now he's got to change, and he's either got to change the brand or change the product. And usually that involves some kind of suffering. I mean, I'm not going to get involved. I don't want to be a negative person about it, but it requires something that's more whatever, rather than I like the brand, I want to stay with the brand, and I can continue with the brand with, like I said, minor surgery or a small update, which allows you to continue with it. And as I said, I'm a fan of the brand. I like the product, and I like presenting products to companies, to consumers, excuse me, that don't have issues. I mean, it's nice to have a product that clicks all the boxes and don't have issues. And it's not common. It's just not. And it's how I got involved, by accident, but well, not necessarily by accident, but a circuitous way. And I'm happy that I did.
And I want to talk about now what you actually do in your company and the challenges ahead and opportunities, not only challenges. So as a consumer, what I want from a company is to learn about how the product is going to be beneficial for what I am looking for. And as a person who is trying to sell, what I find is there are many ways to get the message across to the consumer. And things have been changing, especially I think many things accelerated during the pandemic. So what are the channels in which you find you have a better communication with the end customer and also with the businesses you are dealing with?
Well, part of the foundation of our company is a very strong reliance on internal engineering, whether it's in the software domain, the operation of the products and the like, and also on the electrical circuit design. We do everything in-house. So when we say chprecision, we're taking advantage. Our geographic location is in Lausanne, which is in the Valley of the Watches. So all of our machining is what you would expect from the finest watches in the world. Our circuit boards and the like are built right by us. So everything's coming from Switzerland. But for me, some of the engineering is really impressive, in the team of engineers that we have. And the relationship and the symmetry in the software domain, whether it's our spline filters and our digital products called Peter filters, the upsampling filters, those are proprietary, they're in-house, or the circuits that are designed alongside that with blank sheet design. The fact that we're building products locally in Switzerland, not with a minimum requirement of 60% to say made in Switzerland, but we're actually building engineering and doing it all in Switzerland, in our region. It gives us great control. So some of the supply chain issues and the like that we have heard of from other manufacturers, the shipping issues that have been plaguing the industry in these last couple of years and the like, we're able to mitigate that to a great degree by relying on ourselves and our local artisans. So I hope I answered your question right.
Well, that tells me what the value of the brand is and what you're doing to overcome whatever challenges that maybe for you weren't even challenges, right? But I understand that part, but I was asking more about the marketing channels that right now are effective to talk directly or more directly to the end consumer and let them know what these values are.
Well, I think we're in the middle of that right now. Obviously, this is something new. Working and experimenting with things like joining you on a video like this that gets out to a different group of people. I think if we talk about the US market specifically, while I cover global sales, so each market is a bit different, but certainly the North American market is, it has become more of a geographic, where dealers will cover much larger sections of the country or even the whole country. Historically, when I go back to many, I won't say how many years, but when I was in high school and I bought my first big stereo, what I consider big stereo, Pacific Stereo in Santa Monica, California, there were 4 or 5 big hi-fi retailers within a couple of miles of that location. I can think of one today, and it's by appointment only. And so that the whole dynamics change. So there's a reliance on somebody like Elliot, who not only presents products to clients, but has a reputation that people call him. And it may be in Florida, it may not, but he understands that the expectation of delivery, setup, ensuring products work as they're designed. And especially with a product like ours, which again is not a plug and play product, we've got tremendous flexibility in the setup of all of our products that are, I liken it to setting up loudspeakers, where we know that very small adjustments to a speaker will have a great impact. Well, we can adjust input sensitivities, global feedbacks, depending on amplifiers. We've got other kinds of impedance adjustments and like on all of the inputs, even a calibration for DC offset, and just there's a plethora of, I don't want to scare anyone because this is something that Elliot would do or a proper dealer would do, and that's what we expect to get that last bit of performance. You know, the typical line stage is a plug and play. You put it in your system and you hope it sounds better. Well, ours allows us to do some customization that is system dependent to get that last 1% of possible performance.
I don't want to do a commercial, but I mean, we've got 2 different subjects here. The marketing of the high end has become something that I think most of the high end hasn't really wrapped its head around and figured out how to do that. I think the traditional marketing of the high end, and this is a subject for a much bigger video, which was based around, you know, the magazines and reviews and whatever. It doesn't work the way it used to. I'll leave it at that. I don't want to beat it to death. The thing about CH that for me that I liked, and having been a high-end dealer and now at the dealer / distributor, and dealt with this type of clientele for the better part of 50 years, is someone that sells this stuff, you get tired of hearing from customers that I wish they did this and I wish they did that, and why didn't they do this, and how come it breaks, and why is that and stuff. And it's one of the reasons that I transitioned my business into a small group of companies that I feel don't have those problems. That's not to say that nothing from any one of the companies I sell is ever going to break. I wish I could say that it's not true. But avoiding things that you know are facts. I mean, so there are plenty of high-end companies, which I'm not going to name in the past, where the stuff broke really frequently, or the fit and finish of the product wasn't, the faceplate might have looked nice, but the rest of it doesn't. And you got to realize when you're selling components and speakers and turntables and all the rest of the stuff in the price ranges we're talking about, and being in the business, I think we sometimes forget this because we're dealing with these numbers all the time, that $40,000 for a DAC or a preamp or an amplifier and $100,000 for a pair of speakers is just a number in our head. But somebody actually had to earn that money and pay tax on that money and then buy it. So when they buy, whether it's a chprecision or a Gerbil or a Think Team, they think about it the same way as when they buy a Mercedes or a Porsche or a Steinway or a Rolex or a Patek Philippe. And there is this buyer thing, which can turn into buyer's remorse, that me in my position, I'm trying to avoid that.
Sure.
And it's some of the reasons that I got involved with the products that I did, is the fact that I feel that not that they're the only products that are good, and I'm not trying to say that either, but they fit my criteria, and I feel if they can please my criteria, then there's other people that they can please as well. You know, we have a lot of stuff out there today, and I think that, and I will give you guys a compliment, I think that there are very few companies that do everything in total as well as chprecision does. That's not to say there are none, okay? But fit, finish, packaging, shipping, service, quality of product, quality of sound, quality of construction, all of those things are really first class, and I think that's what makes them a special company.
And Kevin, so you told us how you went into working for chprecision and with chprecision, but what is that you like the most about music? Like, what made you say, this is my path, this is where I want to belong?
Well, as many people in the audio industry have a similar path of accidental joining the industry. In the 80s, I was in the early days of networking, computer networking, and found myself in Seattle working for Boeing, and did not find it particularly rewarding to be one of hundreds of thousands of employees in a cubicle. So I found myself in a hi-fi shop and asked for a job, and somehow I got it, and that was my path. And it combined with my, as I grew up, concerts, my father's business. Oh, he loved jazz, so jazz was in the background, of course. But then I grew up loving in the mid 70s, R&B of that era. And so I found myself in the middle of this. The CD player was just hitting the market. Not that it was the greatest sounding device, but everybody was so excited. And we were getting reissues of everything. It was a big deal. And I found myself in Seattle at Jazz Alley a couple nights a week while I sold hi-fi during the day, and music was just 24/7. And next thing you know, I had a career that was kind of a temporary break from the computer industry. So it's been quite a ride. As I said, the audio industry I've moved around the country. I've moved back and forth in and out of California, Pacific Northwest. I lived in Vienna, Austria for a number of years. I've traveled the globe for different companies. I cannot say with less enthusiasm, what a ride. It's been absolutely fantastic. I love this industry, and now I get to work with a manufacturer I consider, and certainly it's personal, but I consider them the finest manufacturer of electronics in our industry.
I don't know if you feel comfortable answering this, but I'll ask it anyway. And if you don't, it's okay. Maybe for a lot of our audience, do you think that you could give them a brief history of chprecision as to where it came from, how it started, and how they got to today?
Sure. We'll keep it simple because, the background of the C and the H, Florian Cozy, who's our chief engineer, designer, CEO, and Terry Heeb, there's the CH. How in a country like Switzerland, the name chprecision was not taken up by patent by somebody prior, given it's a country that's known for precision. And of course, CH is the international designation for Switzerland. We got lucky and got to choose the best name of the list. Terry and Florian have a long history within the industry, both, starting back in Goldman, to Anagram, Engineered, other companies that they've both been the founders, been engineers for, and have sold off, all offer a bit of influence to what CH is, which was blank sheet design. As I mentioned before, we have an amazing engineering team that helps with the in-house design of everything. The goal, and everybody's, I think, heard this at some point or another with audio, is to keep signal paths as short as possible. And that becomes difficult to push the envelope to the next level. There's components, short signal path. We are also using a lot of software in the background that's not within the signal path, optimizing all of the components to make sure that every aspect of a system is working in its optimal form. And this is quite unique. It allows us, as you described, firmware updates as we find ways to pull more performance out. Sometimes that's done in the firmware or a simple upgrade via a USB stick. There have been updates. So the first product we made was the D1 I mentioned earlier, which was a CD transport. We just replaced that in the last 12 months with the D1.5. For a small manufacturer, the D1.5 is not just an update to the D1, it's a complete redesign going all the way down to the transport that integrates many of the things you would talk about typically in a turntable, things like resonance and the like, to create the best spinning mechanism known. And I can't tell you how many emails I have fielded from other manufacturers wanting to buy our transport. We're not big enough to supply other people. We're making them as fast as we can for ourselves. The C1, which was released with the D1, so about 12 years ago, many things have changed. One example, the high resolution technology has changed. So there's more higher res files available. So we had a change to the digital board with our card cage platform. One could upgrade their digital card by pulling it out, replacing the input with a new card. We offered a special pricing difference on that, so it wasn't at the highest, if you will, retail if you wanted a separate board. And suddenly that C1 could support all of those formats. In the case of streaming, a lot of things changed from when we introduced the first streaming board. One of them is Rune. We introduced a new streaming board. Again, same thing. We had a price trade-in program where somebody could take out, or the dealer ideally would take the streaming board out, which required 2 screws, slid the new board in, and they now had the latest generation. Upgrades, like I mentioned, the D1 to D1.5, because the platform's so different, rather than being able to just swap transports, which is impossible mechanically, there's no way. We're offering a special trade-in program. So in that same upgradability idea, we've tried to allow that client that's had a 10-year-old D1 to have a price efficient upgrade path to get a D1.5. As we've upgraded the amplifiers and the like, we've done the same thing, whether it's internal or a whole new chassis. The A1 went away. We now have the A1.5, which is half again as large. Obviously, there's no internal upgrade for that. We have to replace the whole unit. So we offered an upgrade program. Our upgrade from an M1 to an M1.1 was an internal power supply update. That was something that was done in the field. Clients did not have to actually ship the amplifier back to us in Switzerland for that update. And so it permeates this idea of flexibility and upgradability. And again, we're trying to get the most performance out of the product anyway, using software control to control the functioning of the product. So always keeping them operating at the most optimal level. I hope I hit the buttons there. I think there's so much there.
Got most of it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people maybe are not that familiar with the company. So why don't we get on to the more fun stuff?
The trivia. Why don't you start with the first question, Elliot? You're good.
So Kevin, and I'm going to say a little bit more than I normally do because I want to open the book. What sound do you love? And I'm not talking about specifically an audio thing. I mean, you can make it an audio thing if you want, but what sound do you love? What's your favorite sound in the world?
Obviously we're talking at this point, we're talking about music. And if I had to choose, I'm sorry?
It doesn't have to be.
Well, for me, it is. I know some people will say nature and the wind blowing through the trees. Nothing at this moment, and could change tomorrow if you ask me this question tomorrow. But at this moment, right now, I'm thinking of a violin. A solo violin can do things emotionally with the proper music and the like, and that takes nature and pushes it way past for me. Now, it helped that I played violin as a child, but still, and I'm thinking you did a demonstration at this last show where you were playing an amazing piece that was performed, I think, in your home. And
well, I heard it at my partner's house.
Yeah.
The piece that we played at the show was Aaron Rosan, who owns a Guarneri violin that was worth over $10 million, and his accompanist, John Cavelli, doing this thing called Hebraic Legacies that I think was recorded by Peter McGrath back in the Audiophile days. And the gentleman that was Peter's partner was a friend of my friend. And it's a long, involved story, but I used to sponsor a concert series. And I thought the recording was spectacular and managed to find it and get it on my server before we did the show. And it's a really good thing.
So spectacular. I mean, I'm looking at you and I'm thinking of that. So obviously that's,
right, well,
that's part of the influence.
And who's your favorite composer, like for violin pieces that you could recommend?
Yeah, so I mean, I lived in Vienna, so if I said anything but Mozart, then people would not believe that I lived there. So as you know, it's even his bust is on the side of taxi cabs. So Bach is what I grew up with. That was what we all the concerts. We weren't wealthy enough to go to every concert, so when we went, we made it count, and it was always Bach.
Nice. But now, on the same token, don't tell me that you like every kind of music. Maybe you do, but what's the sound that you dislike? So
it's interesting because I found some rap that is okay, but certainly that's a genre that I'm not real big on. But there's some overlap, like Miles at the end of his life, he was starting to experiment, and that's similar to his experimentations with fusion and the like. Not all of that was my favorite. So I grew up loving mid-70s R&B. Prince was one of my favorite artists, as was Bowie, for similar reasons, pushing the envelope musically. I happen to love Phineas and Billie Eilish. I am absolutely enamored with their collaborations, their family, and just what they're doing with music. They're unbelievably talented. And I already hit all the big ones before. So, Bach to Billie Eilish.
That's a true audiophile. Elliot,
I don't know, because I have a problem with the term audiophile.
Why? Everybody has a problem with the term. What's wrong?
And I used to talk about this in seminars that I've given about the audio industry, and part of it would be the question of the distinction between an audiophile and a music lover. Most of us started as music lovers, and the transition to audiophile usually means, instead of listening to all thousands of recordings that we own, we only listen to the same 5 discs. We're listening to the gear, and we talk about the gear. Something that I've learned recently, which I appreciate more than ever with CH equipment, I can't listen in the evening at the volume levels that I used to listen to audio when I started. Children, people sleeping in the home, etc. And I've had to listen at more modest levels. And the better the gear, everything's still there, right? Regardless of the music. And that's something that it has been an epiphany for me, not to mention that it's been easier on the ears. You don't get fatigued. So audiophile, I'm listening to music all the time. And Roon is maybe my favorite change in audio, because I go down the rabbit hole listening to a recording I like, and then I start touching on the producers and other artists and recommendations. And I will say 3/4 of what I end up playing I don't like, but that extra new 25% that I didn't know until I was listening, it's unbelievable what's available today.
I couldn't agree with you more. I talk about it all the time at shows. I think streaming in general is just a wonderful thing for music lovers. Forget about the gear. That, for a modest amount of money a month, whether it's Qobuz or Tidal or whichever you choose, or you're spending less than $20 a month, and pretty much all the music that's ever been recorded in the world is available at your fingertips. and these devices learn what you like and recommend other stuff. And I found tons of music that either I had not heard or didn't know about or forgotten about or whatever. And I think it's fantastic. I mean, I just think it's really fantastic. And especially if you're not a jazz person or not a classical person and you want to learn, these services really help you do that. And of course, then you can explore, like you said, by composer, conductor, recording engineer, artist, wonderful, wonderful stuff. I think it's an amazing time to be someone that actually loves music.
Well, I think in classical music, they still have to do some work. So you can find the pieces by the composer and the conductor and the orchestra, the exact opus, whatever, because sometimes it gets really difficult.
Oh, yes.
I agree. Finding the right recordings of classical music is like trying to find the best pizza in your city. I mean, it all looks kind of the same, but it's not, you know. And for those of us that don't have, you know, I have customers that have these incredible backgrounds in classical music, and I don't. So if I want to hear, and I just did this yesterday, Mahler's Third, and I found something that I like, and I mentioned it to somebody, and then they could write me a 5-page letter on all the different versions and why I should listen to this. I don't know that. I just found, well, I really like this recording and it sounded good. You know, my knowledge in other areas like popular music is, you know, obviously a lot more complete, but it doesn't change the fact that as I've gotten older, my taste is broadened and I listen to more jazz and classical than I used to, you know. So
I made the mistake.
Let's change the subject. Do you have an idol in the audio business? Somebody that was your hero or mentor or whatever that perhaps helped set your path?
I have a couple. The one that actually hired me writes for Stereophile. He's a jazz reviewer. That's Thomas Conrad, or as we called him, TC. So I'll always be grateful to Tom. And I think you know Sterling Trail. My first, if you will, road trip as a rep was with Sterling Trail, and my path in the career really launched from there. And at the time, his business partner John Hunter from Rel. Those are probably the biggest key influences on why I love this industry, and always pushing the envelope. There's something around the corner, we can get more. I mean, you saw me with my new Spirit level that now you own. Who knew you could spend $500 on a leveling device? And it matters.
Well, there's always something to learn. You know, I'm a big Sterling fan as well, and I really highly respect him. And he's one of the few people that I will willing to call and ask about something that I want to find out more about that and believe what he tells me. But we're all learning, and I think that whether you're a music lover or an audiophile, and I don't like some of these terms, but
sure,
you got to realize what you don't know. You know, everybody in this industry seems to have a very strong opinion, but I've been doing it for 50 years and there's still tons of stuff I don't know. And it's finding that stuff that you don't know that helps you, you know, push the rock down the road, so to speak, and get more and more enjoyment out of what you have. So anyway.
Agreed.
Now you switched your careers from networking or network computing into the audio industry. But if you weren't doing what you're doing now, what would be the alternative?
Oh, I can't imagine what I would be doing now. I suppose if Tom didn't hire me back in 1988, I'd still be pushing computers of some sort, although the world's changed so much. This industry doesn't let you out, as far as I can tell, once they suck you in. I'm too old to race my bike anymore. I used to, you know, race bikes, but that's not a possibility. So hard question. I'm sorry, I don't have a good answer.
What kind of motorcycle do you ride?
Oh, no, bicycle.
Oh,
pedal
bicycle,
car.
not motorcycle.
I
Okay.
was a track racer. I'm not very smart. Go straight, turn left,
I don't think so. I think
like
you're
NASCAR.
Or bicycles, right?
Yes.
I like bicycles too. Your question, Elliot.
Yeah, I don't do bicycles anymore. A friend
But
of
you
mine,
do golf, and I'm terrible, so at least you
well,
get that.
you know, golf has been something that's been part of my life for 13 years, since I'm 13 years old. And golf is one of those things that it's kind of like audio in a way, and I'll explain it this way, is that you got to learn in golf what you don't know, and you got to learn in golf how to manage what you do know to make it work for you. And I incorporate it into audio. For example, you can tell people whatever you want. Sometimes they want to believe you, sometimes they don't. That's just the way the business is.
Mhm.
You know, I'm a believer in room first, and then the speakers you choose for the room are going to dictate almost everything else that you do.
Mhm.
And it is not a universal fit for speakers in a room. You know, I see so many examples of people with far too much speaker in far too little room.
Sure.
And that's the tail wagging the dog, so to speak. And you're trying for your whole life to try and fix problems that you created yourself, when with a little bit more forethought, you probably would have gotten a much better result by maybe choosing something else. And it doesn't mean that something else is better. It just means it's going to work better in your room.
Mhm.
And I'll give a better example. Like my room is about 16 by 23 with almost 10-foot ceiling. It's a little less. And, you know, Gerbil makes a variety of speakers, but if I was to say, and I could afford this, that I wanted to buy a Majestic, which is our best speaker, the room's too small.
Mhm, mhm.
Okay. People don't want to hear that, but the room's too small. And so I have the Noblesse and the Marquis. And for example, the Marquis, that's a perfect size room. It's not only a really good room for the speakers, but it's a relatively good size to make them work without
Sure.
really trying to squeeze everything and knowledge and stuff. When I put a Noblesse in that room, it's really hard to get it to the point like where we had it at the Pacific Audio Fest,
Mhm.
where the speakers got room to breathe. And then my analogy is sort of like, you got to buy the right tool for the job. You got to buy
Sure.
the right car or the right vehicle for the job. If you know, you're going camping off road, you're not buying a Ferrari. Okay. It's like, and if you want to, you know, go through the snow in the mountains, you need to buy the right vehicle. And I think that this is something in the audio business that doesn't get talked about enough. And I don't think our industry has done a good enough job. It's like everybody wants to buy the more expensive or the bigger, but like many things in life, big is not always better.
Sure.
Great.
I'm
So
sorry, I got carried away.
your turn to ask a question, Elliot.
What do you think is the greatest myth in audio? Now that I just debunked them all.
Wow. Yeah, because I mean, you already answered that question.
Well, that's my myth.
Well, but I think you nail it, and I'm going to add a bit of a piece because it's a big part of my career, and that's setup. And I have seen so many and have known so many clients. I interact when people email me with questions about setup and the like, where the gear that one owns is still not optimized. They're not happy. They're now buying new gear, and the amount of influx, I think all of these, you know, most of the gear that's made today is good. I won't say that it's all exceptional, cutting edge, but I mean, everything deserves to be set up properly. And I don't find that. So loudspeakers are the most critical. Of course, they have the highest distortion of the audio chain. It is the one piece that's most plagued with problems. And part of that is just by nature of converting it to mechanical energy and the room interaction. Not that the product's flawed, but the process of setup and the like requires a lot more work than typically is done. And so if you understand how the speaker works, then you can also understand the right speaker for the room. If we have the right speaker in the room optimized with great electronics, every change in that electronics should be realized. So if we bring this back to CH, I happen to love the A1.5. It's our smallest amplifier. There are distinct advantages sonically upgrading to an M10. It's not just more power. If we have the correct loudspeaker, it may look like an imbalance because the room is more modest in size, putting a giant M10 on that loudspeaker. But if that speaker is the right one for that room, oh my gosh, the bigger, better amplifier, all of those advantages are realized. And so, I think, as you said, great systems, let's get the right speaker for the room. And then as good as you can go on source material, you can never get back what's missing on sources. So whether it's a fantastic phonostage or P1 upgraded from either a single box, or you can go all the way up to a 4-box, 4-piece dual power supply mono version of a P1, every one of those upgrades is going to be realized on the system. Or if you're in the digital domain, the C1 going to a 3-chassis mono, there's an advantage. But if the speakers aren't set up properly, if they're mismatched for the room, those advantages get lost.
Now, let me ask you, Kevin, how do you see your company in the next 5 years and in the next 10 years? Where do you want to go?
Well, we part of my coming on board was to lift some of the sales responsibility that had fallen on a couple of our engineers. And so the goal there, being a small company, was to allow for our engineering team to work more quickly and more focused with less travel and do what is their calling. And I'm a cheerleader for the audio industry that happens to be a huge fan of chprecision. So I'm out in the field trying to present, the products and what we do best worldwide. So we introduced last year our M10, L10 linestage power amplifier, new 10 series, celebrating a 10-year history of the company. This year, we introduced the replacement of our first 2 products, the D1 to D1.5 and C1 to C1.2. There are other things that we can add to the lineup, and it's a matter of timing, engineering. It won't be released if it's not better. So Elliot can talk to how great I happen to be a big fan of our L1 line stage and our M1.1. So for the L10 and M10 to exist, there had to be a clear advantage. So I hope that we can expand the 10 series and the like, but it will have to offer a clear sonic performance advantage over what we have today. So, and that's the 5 and 10 year, is to see how far we can take our performance up.
Now, what is the audio market that is growing more in the world?
Asia Pacific is, or I'll just say Asia in particular, is still quite strong. Japan, of course, is the dominant press, but China, of course, is large. And then you have a number of smaller countries within Asia that have a very, very healthy, robust, high-end business. And that you can talk to all manufacturers, from turntable manufacturers making 6-digit turntables. Where are they selling? Asia is pretty strong. EMEA or Europe and the Middle East is a bit of a sleeper, because it's if you talk to individual countries throughout Europe, they don't think they sell a lot of high end. But then when you look at what Europe sells and the like, or purchases, it's actually quite healthy. And Europe being smaller than North America, while there are a lot of different countries, it's pretty amazing how robust. Of course, Germany's the big one for Europe. Their press is the most dominant, but there's a lot of growth opportunities there. And in North America, we're, as we know, and especially the United States, but the Americas in general, there's a pretty healthy South American, Brazil in particular is fairly healthy audio industry. The US is the world's consumer of expensive things, from Ferraris to chprecision. It's actually fairly balanced. I have to tell you, it's surprisingly balanced. Asia's still bigger, but for the most part, those three different regions are relatively close, depending on if you have a war or not happening. Not to make fun of Ukraine and the war, but that did soften Europe a little bit.
I still think the US has the opportunity to be a much larger market. I think part of audio's problem for 50 years has been one of exposure. And it's not an easy thing. I mean, we were too dependent upon, and I don't want to get into this, but too much, one stage marketing, which was strictly the magazines for a long time. And you've got, it's a relatively, the whole industry is relatively small in size per se. The whole thing may be big, but with the exception of very few companies, most of these companies are not big companies, meaning they can't afford to go on television and they can't take full page ads in magazines and newspapers and things like that. So our industry has been very much word of mouth. I hope to, and that's the purpose of this to some degree, of expanding the availability and the education of consumers to the high end in a way that we can reach them without being prohibitive financially. I mean, like, yeah, would I like to run commercials on the Super Bowl? Yeah, I'm sure I would. And it probably would bring business, but I don't have $1 million to spend for 30 seconds to do something to do it. And I think that's one of the reasons that in parts of the world like Asia, where you've got, in a way, a lot more mature audio industry in a smaller place with some pretty large relative distributors in a lot of these countries that there's maybe 3 or 4 distributors in a lot of these countries that handle everything. So they kind of control the market so they can get it out there. That obviously is not true here. And so a lot of the European products and Asian products that have come here in the last, 5, 10, 15 years have to fight an uphill battle against trying to find a place where they can be seen and heard. It's just reality. It's like I said, it's a very small industry with limited financial budgets. And I think that affects a lot of companies. And I know it affects mine and probably Veronica's and probably yours too. But, that's what the internet hopefully can help expand the horizons of this. And I'm not going to say level the playing field because that's certainly not right. It's just make more people aware and make them curious. And I think, with COVID, it set back our industry, but maybe COVID is also going to change people's viewpoint on, because I think it has, on what they want in their house and choices of entertainment going forward in the future, because we all hope that this is never going to happen again, but that's probably not realistic.
To me, what is going to happen, what I predict, is that we're going to learn how to communicate better with our final customers, understanding them better, being in their shoes. That's a very commonplace if you think about it, but it is so true that we have to learn how they tick, how they feel, how they think, to what they are really interested in. And I think that we haven't yet decoded the key for being in a luxury market that doesn't want to be a luxury market. So many people are spending an amount of money that is so great, and yet they're pointing out the values that they get for their investment more than in the money that they are spending. Maybe because this is not something just to brag around the streets, but in certain ways, it has to have that motivation too. Anyways, it's a long subject and I don't want to take your time.
Wear it. You can't wear it and you can't drive it. And it's in your house. Well, I mean, seriously, I had a short stint in the watch business, and a lot of luxury watches are all status. I mean, what it is. I mean, I'm not saying people don't love them and they're not beautiful and they're not beautifully made and they make you feel good and whatever. But, you know, nobody needs 50 watches, okay? I don't think anybody needs, it's not a function of need, a $300,000 Patek Philippe, but it is a work of art and they're limited production things and people appreciate them. But when you have one, okay, particularly Rolex, which is a name that everybody knows, everybody sees it on your wrist. And so audio is not like that. In general, if you bring somebody in your house and you say, I want to listen to my system, and they go, how much did you pay for that? And you say $400,000, they look at you like you need a straitjacket. Okay, it's that, you know what I'm talking about. It's like most of the time they, you know, but yet I know from my experiences when I bring people into my showroom or back in the day in my home, and you play something for them, most people have their first response is, well, I had no idea that something like this existed.
Right.
And this is really amazing. I can't believe how much I can hear and this whole experience that I'm seeing. So it happened in home theater. I don't know why it hasn't happened in audio. And I'll just make this last thing, and I don't want to pontificate, but we were an early adapter as a store into building a home theater. This is a long time ago. And the best demonstration we would do with people is you come in and show them a big picture and turn the sound off. It's just a big picture. Put a little picture up with a good sound system and people get right away get enthused. Sure. And part of it, it's the sound, the score, the music, the noises that make it involving. Okay. And so this, you know, as you ride a bicycle or run on a treadmill or sit on a train or an airplane is okay, but it's not the same. It's just not the same as sitting in front of a world-class audio system. And that doesn't have to be $500,000. It could be $10,000, $6,000. I mean, whatever it is, there's a lot of, I agree with you. There's a lot of seriously amazing gear that's out there today and all different things that accomplish all, and with the ability of streaming for most people that you can get involved for a reasonable amount of money and have the ability to listen to everything with no harm. You don't have to go to a store and buy 50 albums and find out that you hate 48 of them, okay?
But if you love vinyl, then streaming helps you to select what album you're going to buy.
I was going to say that earlier.
I'm just saying that my experience in the past of buying CDs and records is you used to hear something on the radio, you know, I'd hear a cut from Elton John and I'd go buy the album and then find out I didn't like the album, okay?
Sure.
And I had 6,000 records and I tell the story all the time, and, you know, 5,600 of them sat there and held my floor down, and 400 of them basically I listened to, because the other ones were good for car stereo or whatever, but I didn't like the music, I didn't like the recording. The nice thing about Rune and Tidal and all of this, and again, if you're an LP person, it's too, you can hear the stuff first and then go out if you want. If you're a believer in vinyl or you want hard copies, you know, tape or CD, you can buy that, and at least it's like tasting the food before you pay for it. You know, you get a little chance for it. I think it's a great time for music. I think it really is a great time.
Well, Kevin, would you like to say some final words for our audience?
Well, thank you for joining us. I wasn't quite sure what to expect today, other than having watched a couple of these videos. But you know, obviously, I love the audio industry. So anybody that's paying attention here is paying attention to the audio industry. So thank you. And if you haven't listened to chprecision, certainly highly recommend taking an audition. Absolutely phenomenal equipment.
Yeah,
well, I'd like to thank you for visiting us. I also want to thank you for your help at Pacific Audio Fest, and I appreciated your knowledge and your help and your expertise in what we accomplished there, which I thought was really amazing. And again, thank you very much for coming on. And for all of you who's watching, don't forget to subscribe and
like it.
for the release of the video. And Veronica, why don't you wrap it up?
Well, just that. Thank you very much, Kevin. Thank you, Elliot, and thanks everybody watching. Give the thumbs up to the video. So see you next time. Looking forward to it.